we're going to talk about emotions and how to use emotions in a positive way. So for starters, we need to define what is the word emotions or emotion or emotional mean to you. And for me, I think that it has been used kind of in a negative way toward me in my growing up. You know, we often hear, don't be so emotional. Don't be so overreactive. I think it's been like in a negative way when we feel too much sometimes. So emotion, an instinctive state deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with others. So what the definition is saying is that our emotions are often based on the influence of people around us, circumstances, relationships with others. And it's an intuitive feeling as distinguished from knowledge or reason. And in that way, you might think that there's some negativity attached to it because we're not being reasonable. It's not about having knowledge about something. It might be related to our mood. So we want to, I think that having control over our emotions, being able to utilize them in a really positive way can benefit our riding, and just in general, life can be a lot more comfortable. The 12 basic emotions, and there's a lot more than this, but I think when we look at these 12, we can kind of put a lot of the other ones into one of these categories: adoration, amusement, anger, awe. I love that. Confusion, contempt, desire, disappointment, distress, fear, interest, sadness. Some common emotions that we feel daily: anger, anxious, belonging, blame, curious, disappointed, disgust, embarrassment, empathy, excited, fear, scared, frustrated, gratitude, grief, guilt, happy, humiliation, hurt, jealous, joy, judgment, lonely, love, overwhelmed, regret, sad, shame, surprised, worried. So the emotions in red, of course, are what we would call bad emotions. I don't think there's really anything bad, but they are the ones that we don't want to experience as often, of course. They still hold energy. So what we would like to do is learn how to shift them. And when I was thinking about like shifting them, I thought it was really pertinent to put the definition of shift: change the focus or the direction. So if we're changing the focus of the emotion or we're changing the direction, I think that is really a great way to look at it. So if we picked one of these, the first one of these, and of course you could apply it to any of these emotions if you want. What about being angry causes problems? Does being angry cause problems? What are you feeling when you're angry? Like, what is it about a situation, a circumstance? What did we say here? It's one circumstance, mood, or relationships with others, an intuitive feeling that's not this, that is distinguished from reason. So what's going on when we're angry? What are we feeling? Something in our body? Where is the energy going? And what are you capable of accomplishing when you're angry? And I think that's a really big question. A lot of times we're capable of accomplishing problems. We are capable of creating damage. We are, it's possible that we can accomplish breaking a relationship, breaking trust, make a mess out of something that we've worked on really hard to create. And then if it's a relationship with our horse or with a friend, sometimes not having control of that emotion can do irreparable damage. So if we are angry, why would we want to shift or change the focus of this emotion? Do you have, like, do you want to just get rid of it altogether? Can you just say, I'm not going to be angry about this? I think that shifting it, changing the focus or changing the direction of that energy is going to be more possible than just not having anything, no feeling about it at all. So if we're angry, do you have energy? And the answer for me is like a really big yes. If I get angry about something, I'm just like bubbling with energy. And so I think I've probably told you guys that before, but funny enough, my one of my trainers used to think that I would go to the horse shows and I was a little bit too passive and I wouldn't bring enough competitive spirit to the ring. And so he would choose to pick like kind of little fights with me in the warm up or before the show so that I would come to the ring with more energy. And I didn't really realize what was happening at the time. But later, I started thinking about it, and it became apparent to me that we can actually access energy that's similar to anger, but not being angry. But we can access energy because we want to. We can create a situation where we want to have that energy. He chose to do it that way because he didn't know any better. But it's just funny that I did ride better because I had my blood a little bit up, right? So do you have energy when you're bored or you're not interested in something? Of course you're not. You don't. When we're bored, it's because your energy gets down. When you're not interested, your energy gets down. When you're angry, your energy is up. Can you imagine really being angry about something you don't care about? Absolutely not. Like, why would you waste your energy on being angry about something that's not important to you? So, one, I'm really having fun with my technology today. Two, all right, so this should be it. All right. So what does that mean? It means you need to care to be angry, and caring can bring energy. So controlling the emotions will bring energy to what you are doing and create an ability to make change toward what you want to accomplish. So by figuring out how to shift that energy into something more positive, it's not going to take the energy away. You're still going to have it. And we can do something positive with it. Do something creative with it. Do something toward your goals with that energy. So, do you have a physical reaction to being angry? I definitely do. I think if I really snap, I think I can feel my blood boiling in my head. Do you maybe breathe a little different? Do you, what would be a physical reaction? Probably your muscles feel more tense. Many of us might raise our voices or breathe, maybe not breathe as deep. Um, what does it feel like in your body? And is it possible to recognize this feeling coming on before it is too late and shift it? So I think that that's definitely something worth working on, because we all know that if we're trying to compete, there are many things that can get our emotions, especially when you have worked on something and worked at something, and then you're in a pressure situation and something happens that triggers you. You really want to take that energy and you want to do something positive with it. You don't want to cause a problem in a relationship, or a relationship. What about with the show management, or with a judge, or with your horse, or with your trainer, or something like this? So we want to recognize this feeling in our body, and then we want to try to shift it into a more positive emotion, a more positive act on things in a more, from a more positive place. So some ways you can shift it is what we've talked about a lot with the breath work. So we already, because we're trying to figure out how to find relaxation at horse shows and things like that, we should have already been practicing different ways of breathing that brings us into a presence of mind. So if we've already practicing that, then we could feel our body getting tensed, feel this anger bubbling up, and we could go into some of that box breathing or something like that. We could try to change the proximity of the problem. So if we're getting angry at somebody that's warming up in the warm-up ring, that's behaving badly, we could, remove ourselves to another part of the warm-up so that we don't have to have that going on right with us, maybe irritating our horse, or upsetting our horse. We could change the subject. So is it a conversation with somebody, or we could turn that conversation into a conversation that we're having with our horse? Can we just change the subject? Can we take a break? So if it is something that's happening with another person, can we just take a break from that? Or can we, if it's with our horse, can we just like walk on a long rein for a minute and then start again? And if it's with a person, or a teacher, a trainer, somebody work for, whatever, is it possible to get good at asking for a minute or to take a time out? Is it possible just to feel comfortable before the blood is boiling to say, I think I need a minute to talk about, to think about this, or I need to step out for a second. Or if it's somebody's not even aware that it's making you uncomfortable, can you excuse yourself for the bathroom, or, something like that for a minute, get your emotions a little bit under control, and then revisit the situation. I think when we're talking about it with horse shows, I've experienced things like being at really important qualifiers, for instance, and something might happen with the weather. Like we experienced that last weekend at the show, where they had to stop the show and put a break, for 45 minutes on the ring, or half an hour. And the riders that came back after the break were definitely not as composed as the riders that had been able to ride before the rain. And I think there were several reasons, but part of it can be that emotional stamina. I've been at qualifiers where they had to change it, and it was really something important for, I don't know if it was the Olympics or the World Equestrian Games, and they really had to change the times, and people had worked really hard, and it was one of the last qualifiers going toward this, and there was a lot of emotions being spewed at the show management and at all the people around. And I think that we understand when you've worked really hard at something and then something interferes with your ability to perform at your best, and it's an outside influence, and it's creating that situation that but by wasting your emotions on being angry about that, you're actually not utilizing your emotional energy toward being the best competitor that you could be. So in smaller ways, when we're at smaller shows or working toward things, learning how to do whatever we need to do in those moments, I completely identify with the people that were really upset, the riders that were really upset. I can completely get it. Why they had been working and working and riding, and months of preparation, and money spent on plans, and really wanting to go to, I think it was the World Equestrian Games. And then here it is, like one of their last qualifiers, and the weather dictated that they had to stop the show, and then they had to start again. And there was a lot of really bad feelings. And I have to say that the people did not come out and compete well after that all happened. And it doesn't mean maybe they would have done better or not if it hadn't happened. But definitely, if we work on this, it's something outside of riding, and then when we're riding. I'm not only talking about, losing your patience when you're actually riding your horse, because I think we're all getting pretty good at that. Of course it happens, it can happen, but I think it's also other things that outside influences that will break into our bubble while we're riding, and then affect how we ride. We're not actually angry maybe with our horse, but we're angry about something that's going on the outside, or something that happened to disturb your time at the show, or somebody outside of the ring that's disturbing your test, or something like that. And you allow your focus to get on that and start getting angry about that. And really, you need to shift that into being excited about how fun it is that you care so much about this. And then how can I be my best self in this moment and use this energy for something positive? And there's just so many places that we can do this. So Some ways are going to breath work, change the proximity of the problem, change the subject, take a break, and we all need, I definitely need to learn this. Get good at asking for a timeout or a minute to think about it. Don't let the time close in on you when you don't feel like your brain is open and working properly. An interesting thought that I just had while I was writing this is that our horses don't have they don't have the ability to ask for that timeout or to ask for that minute. So sometimes when you feel your horse is getting a little angry, right? You know, you've asked too many times for something, or they don't understand what you're asking them, and you feel them getting a little angry. Would that be a time to let yourself believe that they would say, wait a minute, can I need a timeout. I need to think about this for a minute. Do you mind if we take a little break? And it kind of makes me chuckle. But I think I will get a nice chuckle out of that when if I'm riding and I feel like my horse is getting a little bit irritated with me now. So, a fun thing is that creating a shift requires that you step back from being completely consumed by the emotion, gain some distance from it. You step back so you can get yourself a little bit away from it. The gap that is the gap that will set you free. So, it'll set you free from that feeling like you're out of control, that distance that you make from your problem, that distance that you're going to take yourself away from that feeling, that I what how do you say it, that you're like in it, you just step out, you okay, that can all stay there and I'm going to step aside mentally. And it's that gap, that stepping aside, that all of a sudden gives you freedom of time and breath and observation. And it makes you feel less controlled. Imagine